I need to get used to this. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and today's part 2 of talking about my 2 favourite Marvel movies. And first I want to address, sorry if I keep looking down, I've cut a script on my phone because that's just easiest for me. So after watching this film, which as you can probably see by the thumbnail was Endgame, I have firmly decided my top 3 MCU films, which is Infinity War in 3rd place, and Avengers Assemble 2nd, and then Endgame at 1st. And I know a lot of you would disagree with that, but I'm going to give my reasoning throughout this video, so please hold on, and if you still disagree at the end, then feel free to comment why. I'd love to hear all of your guys' opinions. Endgame was written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and of course directed by the Russo brothers. To say that the whole cast and crew had an almost impossible task would be an understatement. This was the 22nd film in one of the biggest franchises, if not the biggest franchise in the whole entire world. I cannot imagine the pure pressure on every single person, in particular the Russos. The light was all shining on them for Infinity War and Endgame. I find a lot of the time with finales of a franchise, they'll aim high, but it'll be too high, if that makes sense, and they'll just miss the mark. As even if it's a smidge, they'll still miss it a bit, and it won't be my favourite film. Whereas this time, the final film in this seemingly forever going franchise was my favourite. Now of course it's not the final film in the MCU, but it's the final film of the Infinity Saga, which had been going on since kind of the first Iron Man, in particular the first Avengers. So they did it. They aimed high, they aimed extremely high, and they pulled it off. They hit right in the middle, for me. I think this is the most you could possibly ever get out of your stereotypical superhero film. It's got action, it's got comedy, and it's got emotion, which is the most important thing in this film, which is the biggest reason why it's my favourite. I mean, this film made me cry, it made me cheer, it made me laugh, it made me scared for the characters, which is really not something that happens often. This film made me truly upset that I wouldn't be able to see certain characters on screen again. Of course, Iron Man and Captain America being the main two, and then even Black Widow, even though some people had a problem with her death, I don't really have many problems with it, which I'll get into in a little bit, but I found that just really well done still, and I can understand why some people didn't, but for me personally, I thought it was done really well. But as some people grow up with the early Batman films, and a lot of people grow up with certain things, I guess I kind of grew up with this. I haven't been to the cinema to see every film, but it's really been important to me watching the majority of these films in the cinema. My camera died, great, well done Jack. Now, honestly, as I was saying, this franchise has a massive place in my heart, and if this doesn't go down as one of the biggest cinematic achievements ever, that may be a big thing. Well, it is a big thing for me to say, and a lot of people may disagree with it, and that's perfectly fine, but I personally think it should be put down as a genuine, incredible cinematic event. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this film or the franchise is perfect, it's not at all. If there's not a film in the franchise I don't have a flaw with, it's all very flawed, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. So let's talk about Tony and Steve, the main characters of the film, of course, and obviously, as you'd imagine going into this film, the best parts. They get the endings they deserve, in my opinion. Tony learns to give up truly everything, and Steve learns to actually care about himself for once, and just give himself the happy life, the simple life, is what I believe Tony said in Age of Ultron. And then thought, a lot of people disagree with how they chose to make him fat with his PTSD in this film, and I totally understand that, because a lot of it is played for comedy, and in certain situations I do disagree with it. For the most part though, I didn't have much of a problem with it. While, like I say, I can understand people's problems with it, for the majority of the film, I think they did it really well. They handled it in the same kind of taste, I felt, as they did with Tony's PTSD in Iron Man 3. and I thought it came across really well because despite all the jokes, you can see the real pain behind his eyes, which is a massive part due to Chris Hemsworth's performance, which is possibly the most underrated actor in the MCU in my opinion. Then we have Banner, or the Hulk, and a lot of people also disagree with this character, and well, yes, I think the decision to make him combine Bruce and the Hulk was off screen, and I think that was a mistake, and I think because that is one of the most important things in his story that should have been on screen. I still don't utterly hate it. We also don't get an explanation for why the Hulk didn't come out in Infinity War, which is something I feel was very important that was missed out, but you know, I guess we have to live with that now. Maybe it'll get addressed later on, hopefully. But we know Banner was scared of the Hulk for a long time. Despite being able to control it, it was still very scary to him. And now, but even though it was scary, he knew he needed it to help protect the world with the other Avengers. And then he combines them both, and now, as he says himself, he has the best of both worlds. And it's a lot of fun, and Mark Ruffalo clearly has a great time with this role here. Also, Hawkeye, or Clint, is one of my favourite characters in this film. I absolutely loved him. One of the most boring Avengers in the previous films, but this is by a mile Jeremy Renner's best performance that I have seen personally. And honestly, in this film, they made him one of my favourite Avengers. Probably a debatable thing to say, but as I always say, just my opinion, and I absolutely loved where they took him in this film. And I'd honestly love to see a gritty, down-to-earth Ronin series about what he was doing in this period, in the same kind of vein as Daredevil and the Netflix shows. I just think that would work really well, and I think Jeremy Renner pulled off this character perfectly, honestly. And I'm not going to talk about every character because this film stars pretty much everyone, so do not worry. But I do want to talk about Black Widow's death quickly. A lot of people criticised it because it felt brushed over for a lot of people, and while I do understand that, because the bit I majorly disagree with is how not soon after they're making jokes, and yes, you can say it's Rocket, but it kind of makes Rocket seem like an ass then, because even though we didn't know Natasha, he's still just being kind of a crappy friend to Thor and everyone else. But saying that, I do think that we were given a fair amount of time to digest this fact, and I think it was done very well. Personally, I think we had a lot of emotion from the actors and the characters, and I think it was addressed, and yes, it wasn't as big and dramatic as Tony's funeral, but that's because Tony had been here from the very start, and yes, Natasha is one of the key MCU characters, but considering everything else in this film, and I think you do have to take that into consideration with something like this, because I find it hard to look at this just as a singular film. You really have to look at it as an event, in my opinion. It's got a lot going on, and Tony has been the focus of a lot of it. I'm gonna just go out and say this as well. A lot of people may disagree with it. I really don't know. But Cap picking up Thor's hammer, top 3 favourite things that's ever happened in a film. It gave me goosebumps. I was so happy when I saw that. It was incredible. It was incredible. I've never had a feeling like it, and I don't know if I ever will again. Speaking of the final battle though, there is a lot of CGI, yes, but for 99% of it, it's actually pretty well, and it doesn't make it any less fun for me. That is one of the good things about the Avengers. I think I mentioned it in my talk about it. It integrates CGI and practical sets really well. This film does not use as much practical sets, but for the most part, the CGI doesn't overly bother me. I think the colours are very grey, but I think that is intentional due to the overall feel of this film and how it's dealing with the events after Infinity War. The plot of the Avengers having to go back in time is also really solid, especially as this is much more of a character-driven film, and that really helps this film. It ties in the other films and all the characters' storylines in really well, and I just thought it was a great end. I mean, this film, with the characters' arcs and the going back to the other films, it's basically one big love letter to us, the fans. I mean, I have the collector sets of the phases, and it's really it is really just a big love letter, and as a fan, it means a lot to me. And the fact that it was in an actual good film as well makes it so much better to me. I know the criticism with the film was Thanos, and well, I understand that because yes, this is not a very well developed Thanos, but I think that was the intention here because this is a warrior Thanos. It's not the one we saw in Infinity War. This is one before he had the gauntlet, before he went on his mission to get the stones, before he had any of them. This is still very much soldier Thanos, the one who would sit behind and let everyone else do the work. And I think that he's purely a physical threat, and I don't think it takes away from Thanos we saw in Infinity War. His arc was ended at the beginning of the film where Thor chopped his head off, or went for the head, and I think it was done really well. I think Thanos and the army just serves for a fun physical threat throughout the rest of this film, because obviously we need one. And I honestly don't have a problem with it, just personally, because I don't feel it takes away from Thanos as a character, because I think we kind of knew that this was what it was like beforehand, before the events of Infinity War. Tony's funeral, though, is perfect, and I will argue with anyone, it is. When he first dies, seeing Peter and Pepper's reaction, and, well, everyone's reaction, it makes me cry. Pepper in particular, or Pepper and Tony in particular, Tom Holland and Gwyneth Paltrow really pull off the emotion great. It makes me tear up just seeing them. I hate it in a way, because I hate seeing characters that I care about get upset and lose someone that I care about as well. But that is what makes it so great. And then Steve just makes me happy sad. I mean, I'm gonna miss him, but I'm really glad he got the ending he deserved, because he did deserve this. In the films, he was happy, and we know that from when he speaks to Sam at the end of the film. And yes, well, there is a kind of a plot hole there. I think that will be addressed. If it doesn't, it should end up being addressed. But as I mentioned in my last video, sets, and I took a little dig, and I think if this film had a lot more practical stuff, it would have overall been better. Would have got us a lot more invested. Not that I wasn't invested anyway, as you can tell I very much was, but I think it would have just made the film better. But I really don't have that much bad stuff to say about this film. I really don't have time to go through everything I love as well. It's an event in cinema to me, and it's a great film, and the whole cast and crew pulled off something incredible. And I hope in the years to come the Russos, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, and anyone who's ever worked on Infinity War or Endgame or any of the Marvel films for that matter, deserves the praise that they get, because they deserve the appreciation that they have been getting, and they deserve to have it for a long time, because this was a monumental task. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of Endgame in the comments below. I just wanted to do a quick 2-part series on my favourite MCU films, because I have a great passion for them, and as I said earlier, they have a good place in my heart. But let me know what you think of these 2 films. Don't know what my next video will be. Also, a quick side note, my streams, just my whole computer at the moment doesn't want to work properly, which is a shame, so I'm not going to be able to use gameplay. You're going to be stuck with this ugly mug. But as well, I'm not going to be able to stream because it's coming out really choppy, but I'll fix it if possible. If not, I've still got this to be able to do, which is the most important thing to me. But thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It is free, and if you end up disliking my content later on, feel free to unsubscribe. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did enjoy. It lets me know that you want to see more. And I will see you in the next one. Take care everyone, and have a great day.